It's unbelievable where a journey can take you if you just give it a chance. If you just trust your inner compass when it's calling you to go somewhere. Even when it's not logical, even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else, if it makes sense to you, that's all you need. That is all you need. And this is one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in my life until this point. Fabulous people, welcome to the podcast for all the babes who create their own life trends. My name is Anastasia, and this podcast is all about inspiring you to relentlessly pursue your biggest dreams and live your most authentic, abundant life. Well, this is actually a very big episode for me because this week I'm turning 40. As a matter of fact, by the time this episode airs, I will be already 40. And unlike the panic and pressure that a lot of people feel around this milestone, I actually feel free. And not because I followed the perfect path, but because I didn't. I've built my life following my inner compass, even when it led me off the traditional path. Living in different places around the world shaped the person who is sitting in front of you today. And not just through the places I've been, but through the bold choices, personal growth, and unexpected clarity that came with each move. Turning 40 has made me reflect on a lot of things, but one theme that keeps coming up is that travel didn't just show me the world. It showed me who I am, and not in that dreamy, perfect Instagram kind of way, but in a real, raw, gritty, beautiful, at times extremely uncomfortable way. A lot of you know the story, my life story of how I moved from Ukraine to the US when I was 16, completely by myself. But what I've never shared before is the day I actually embarked on that plane and left for the United States. This is a very, very emotional and very personal and very vulnerable story that I want to share with you today. And I might get a little bit emotional because even after decades, it still brings so many emotions in me. But nevertheless, I want to share this very, very personal part of my life with you. It was a cold winter morning in Ukraine, very early morning. And my dad took me to the airport. We checked in my bags, and then it was time to say goodbye. They started announcing the boarding for my flight. And I remember that feeling that completely took over my body and paralyzed me with fear. I couldn't move. My dad hugged me. He said goodbye to me. And yet I couldn't move. They announced my flight again, and Dad said, Anastasia, it's time to go. You have to go. And I still couldn't move. I had tears in my eyes, and I knew that in that moment, I was saying goodbye to the old me forever. I knew I had to go, but at the same time, I couldn't. The life that I had in Ukraine, no matter how difficult it was, because you guys know I came from a deep poverty, it was still my life with my family, with my friends, my dog, everything that I had to that moment, everything that I've built, my whole identity was in that life. And I remember them announcing my flight for the third time. And Dad took my plane ticket and he said, listen, you have 3 seconds to decide. You either going to take this ticket and go and board your plane, or I'm going to rip it right now and we will go home, and I promise we will never speak about this again. But you will have to live with the consequences of not embarking on that flight and not knowing what it could have been for you. Maybe it sounds rough, maybe it sounds like a tough Eastern European love, but looking back, maybe at that moment, this is exactly what I needed. And I remember he started counting. 1, and he slowly started ripping the ticket, guys, in half. 2, he ripped it just a bit more. And at that point, the fear of not living my life to the fullest and just embracing and surrendering to all the experiences that life has in store for me, that fear was bigger than the fear of unknown, that paralyzing fear that I've experienced. So I remember with eyes filled with tears, to the point I genuinely don't even remember the airport. I was seeing it through the tears. I grabbed the ticket out of Dad's hands and I just ran, guys. I just ran for that flight through the halls of the airport in Kiev. I was crying so hard. And yet I knew that this was my way. And this was the only way for me. Something inside of me told me that this is what I was meant to do. And in that hall, in that long corridor, that was the time where I said goodbye to everything that I've had up to that moment. And this is the time when I said goodbye to the teenager that I was. Because from there on, I had to grow up really quickly. I knew that from there on, it was me being responsible for myself and for the life that I create. There were no relatives, no friends, no family members, not even one, waiting for me on the other side of that ocean. So that was the day that truly, for me, forever separated the teenager that I was from the young woman that I was about to become. Over the years, travel has been the teacher that I never knew that I needed. And not in that easy and glamorous way, but in the way that it always pushed me out of my comfort zone. Every single time I stepped into a new place, I stepped into a new version of myself. I've been lost so many times in cities where I didn't speak the language. I moved to countries where I had to build everything from scratch: identity, routine, support, businesses. And through this all, I was learning how to be resilient, how to sit with uncertainty, and how to listen to my gut even when there was no map. I didn't choose the safe path or traditional script, not because I wanted to be a rebel, even though I've always been a little bit of a rebel, but because it never felt like it was truly, authentically my path. Moving abroad, living across different cultures, it wasn't about chasing adventure for adventure's sake. It was about following what felt real to me, even when it was extremely hard. I am forever grateful to travel because it gave me the kind of education you cannot find in a textbook or in a classroom, even though, of course, I did graduate from the university and I have 2 degrees. I'm not a full rebel. But one of the most important lessons that travel has taught me is to how to take chances and how to trust your intuition when stepping into unknown. This lesson, of course, started early when I moved by myself to the US at 16. And then it continued from there on. When I was 18, I believe 18 or 19, it's been a long time ago, I decided to do a study abroad program in Italy, in a country I've never been to before. But again, I was so curious, so thirsty for experiencing new things, new cultures. And I was so excited what that experience could bring for me. So I packed my bags, and for a year, I moved from the US to Rome, Italy. And to this day, guys, I can say that it was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. But again, it wasn't because it was perfect and how some people can imagine this romantic way of living in Italy and traveling and enjoying pasta every day and roaming through the streets of Rome or other Italian cities. No, guys, my experience was a little bit different, even though, of course, there were so many incredible, unforgettable, romantic, timeless moments that I will remember for the rest of my life. But there were also a lot of moments that were extremely difficult. When a lot of students were hanging out in the bars of Trastevere, having a good time, drinking, talking, socializing, I was a lot of times at home because one, I had a very clear purpose and understanding why I was in Italy. I was there to study. It was still a study abroad program from the US university to a university in Italy, American University of Rome. So I was there to study. I wasn't just there to party and have a good time. And I was also there because I genuinely wanted to learn the Italian language. And two, because I didn't have money to go out every night and have a good time. So a lot of times when a lot of my classmates stayed up until late or early into the mornings, I I studied. And then later I also got a job as a waitress in Campo de Fiori Square. Those of you who travel to Rome or planning on traveling to Rome, that bar actually still exists. It's called Bacchanale. And I would go to the university in the morning, and then late afternoon, I still remember I had to be there every day, almost every day at 4 p.m. And that's when my shift would begin. I would work from 4 p.m. to around 2 a.m. to 30 a.m., depending on how much cleaning we need to do afterwards. And then I would go home, sleep, get up early in the morning, do my homework, and then go to the university, study there, come back home, and then rinse and repeat every single day. But do I regret it for a second? Absolutely not. Because that year in Italy taught me how to be independent, how to trust myself. It gave me the opportunity to learn a new language and also start this lifelong affair with Rome that lasts to this day. That decision of doing a study abroad in Rome, Italy, shaped the entire trajectory of my life. And guess what, guys? You already know, a lot of you do. Years later, I moved to Italy, but this time it was for good. If you knew me back then, you would have thought, probably, a lot of you would have thought that this choice was not logical. But deep down in my gut, I knew that this was the right decision for me. And I stood by that feeling despite leaving successful banking career, despite leaving my family, my friends, the entire life I built to this day, to that day in the US. I packed my bags and I made the move. And not once, no matter how challenging it was at the beginning, I've regretted my decision. Not once. And of course, guys, if you want to hear more about that move, if you are new to this podcast or this YouTube channel, then of course I invite you to listen or to watch, or both, my episode on how I moved to Italy with zero plan and built my dream life. There I go even into more details on that particular chapter of my life. And then the most recent life-changing trip that I took was to Brussels, Belgium. And I know a lot of you are going to think or say, Brussels, what does it have to do with anything? Because I talk so much about Italy. But yes, guys, you guys know I don't talk about my private life often. But since we are talking about such a big topic, such an important milestone in my life, it is important that I share, of course, this aspect of my life too. A few years ago, Pierre was visiting Rome with his family and we met. And even though we spent very short period of time together, when he left back for Belgium, and he's not from Belgium, he's French, as you can tell from his accent, if you watched any of our videos together. When he left back for Belgium, both of us felt that there was definitely a very special connection there. And a few weeks later, he invited me to celebrate his birthday in Belgium, in Brussels, Belgium. And honestly, guys, with all the honesty, and all my close friends know that, I would have never, ever done it for any other man on this planet. But there was truly that special connection that I felt. And because of that connection, and because I trusted once again my intuition, I found myself on that plane taking me from Rome, Italy to Brussels, Belgium. And we truly spent together some of the most incredible days of my life. Even if universe, God, give me this kind of gift to live until 80, 90, whatever it is, I know for sure I will still look back on those days and think of them as some of the most special days in my life. And so then for almost a year, Pierre and I traveled back and forth. And almost a year later, Pierre moved to Rome, Italy, and he is now my partner in life, love, and business. And the video that I filmed that first trip on Brussels is one of the best performing videos to this day on my channel, because I was riding so high on that wave of love and life and abundance. And of course, all that energy got transmitted in that video to the viewers. And again, I'm just grateful, beyond grateful to myself for taking that chance on life and on love. And of course, there were so many other incredible, life-changing trips that I've taken throughout the years. And honestly, guys, this podcast episode would have been 4 or 5 hours long if I went into every single trip. And some of them, of course, I talked about, like my ayahuasca trip to Costa Rica. That truly was, again, one of the most life-changing trips that I had. Or when during the pandemic, I packed my bags and moved from Rome to Greece for half a year. And I traveled so many different Greek islands. And that is when I started my YouTube channel, this YouTube channel that you're listening to, if you're listening to this episode on YouTube, if you're watching this episode on YouTube. It started in Greece. And again, it started like a chain of events. It started with me packing my bags during the pandemic, taking that chance and moving to Greece for half a year. It's unbelievable where a journey can take you if you just give it a chance. If you just trust your inner compass when it's calling you to go somewhere. Even when it's not logical, even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else, if it makes sense to you, that's all you need. That is all you need. And this is one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in my life until this point. these moments, these leaps of faith, they're the ones that define you. They don't always come with guarantees. As a matter of fact, nothing in this life is guaranteed. But when you say yes to them, when you fully embrace the experience, you grow in ways that no perfect plan could ever prepare you for. So now, as I turn 40, I don't feel like I missed out on anything. I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. And not because I followed the perfect path, but because I've been making bold moves and bold choices throughout my entire life that align with who I am as a person. I now live in my favorite place in the world. I get to wake up every morning and do what I truly, truly love. My travel agency, this YouTube, this podcast. These are all my passion projects. And it's unbelievable that I get to call them my work, because so cliche what I'm about to say, but they never feel like it's work. I have a partner who truly sees me and supports the kind of life I want to live. I chose not to have kids earlier in my life, and I've never been more at peace with this decision. And I have a small circle of friends and family whom I love with all my heart and to whom I will be loyal for the rest of my life. And I don't say any of this to impress you. I say it because sometimes when you come from struggle and complete poverty, and you leave everything behind and take chances that don't make sense to anyone else, it is important to stop and recognize it. I've built this life. I dreamt it. I worked hard for it. I took so many chances. And I'm grateful for it every single day. And not because my life is perfect, but because it is mine. And so, as I step into this next chapter, I just want to say thank you to travel, for being the teacher I didn't know I needed, for showing me the world, and in the process, showing me myself. Thank you for the people I've met along the way, the quiet moments, the chaos, the clarity, for the cities that felt like home, and for the ones that didn't, for the version of me I became every time I said yes to the unknown. The adventures don't end at 40, they deepen. And I hope wherever you are, whether you're on your own journey or just starting to dream about it, you listen to that part of you that's ready to say yes to. And now, speaking of saying yes, I did exactly that for my 40th birthday. In the next video, join me as I am taking you to the City of Lights for the celebration filled with beauty, meaning, and a few surprises, as Pierre planned the entire thing. So I don't even know, guys, fully what to expect, as always, but that is the beauty of the unknown. Now, thank you so much for tuning in into today's episode. I truly hope that you found it useful, beneficial, and hopefully inspirational. And if you want more of Stay Fabulous series, please remember to smack that subscribe button, as well as follow and share with your friends and family. And I am so looking forward to talking to you in the next episode. Until then, and always stay fabulous.